speaking of goofy wastes of time and crazy inbred morons, Megyn Kelly, ladies and gentlemen. You thought I was going to go with JD on this one to stuff. No, he went to Yale. Okay, I don't want to hear any. The shillbilly over here he's a Yale Billy, if we're going to call him anything, right? And this is JD Vance on how friendly media turned against him and his story. And again, his story. His story. And by the way, his story, specifically the hillbilly elegy thing, people did not support him in his political ideas about that. It was a sympathetic story about poverty. That's why people respected it. Something, though, that he threw in the fucking rearview mirror as quick as he could. JD Vance on how friendly media turned against him. Boo-hoo. And his story and the fraudulent equity push. Now, this is something that they've been attacking. They don't like. Let me tell you something. All right. First of all, chat room. I had a conversation this morning with Tara Dublin Rocks, and I wanted to clarify my anti-jargon stance. Anytime you are using jargon, you are preaching to the choir. You are talking into the cul-de-sac. Whether you're using, emotes on Twitter in your bio or any of that stuff, that's fine. And if you want to signal to other people what you feel and believe in, I get it. But understand, you are not communicating, you are signaling, and there's a difference. Communication involves the other person, signaling does not. Okay? So I am not a fan of speaking in terms of jargon. I love emojis too, and especially specific ones. But I don't pretend that they're a way of reaching the other side. Unless you can adapt their emojis, which it would be the way you would do it. You would take their emojis or the symbols that they have taken and you use them, right? Put the American flag next to the gay flag and have them go, see what I'm saying? Right. Meanwhile, fire away with the emotes, especially the Twitch ones. Come on now. But understand, there's nothing wrong with talking to your cul-de-sac. There's nothing wrong with preaching to your choir. It's just not what you do to reach across the aisle or to extend the tent in those regards, right? That's not what it's for. It can be fun. It can be, I would say the emotes, especially like the ones we use on Twitch, are like, they're enticing. People are like, oh, what does that mean? And then you tell them, and that brings them in. That would be the best use of an emote or an emoji in a situation. Does that make sense? But when you're talking about it, using it as signaling, it's the same thing with how like Mike Pillow wears a cross. Okay? Mike Pillow doesn't give a shit about Christianity or Jesus or any of that stuff. Mike Pillow wears a cross so he can signal to other people that wear the cross for the same reason he wears the cross, that they're in the same gang, that they participate in the same sham, right? They have usurped that symbol from somebody else and they are using it to signal other usurpers, okay? So it is very important to me most of the time, if you'll notice when I'm talking online, is that I don't participate in a lot. I don't use any of the stuff in, like putting a black block or any of the emojis or even the pride flag or that kind of stuff in my stuff for when we do things. I'll use like clip art, or I'll use GIFs or something like that occasionally. But in terms of like speaking in emotes and speaking in hashtags, I don't necessarily do that unless I'm specifically doing a joke or pushing, a particular gag, right? But I don't use it as in lieu of conversation, right? So, because that's important to me. And I'm not telling other people how to communicate. I'm telling you, this is what functions for me. And it's important that you recognize that whenever you use those things, you aren't using them to communicate outside your circle, and that's fine. Every circle of friends needs their own shorthand. That's fine. But if you're trying to reach other people or you're trying to display your belief system, I would say do that overtly, not covertly. Feel free to explain all of your feelings and what your beliefs instead of going boop and running away. All right. Anyways, so there is and what happens is because those labels can be used against you. They can be and that we watch this with what happened to liberal and what happened to progressive. They all apparently over time they all mean communist, right? That's my point. And the same thing happened with equality. Equality used to be fine because it was equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome. Equity is a better version of that. Equity has a twofold meaning in most people's conversation. Equity being everybody has the same at the starting line. What you do with it is up to you, but nobody is held back just because of how they were born. Okay? That's equity. It's not equality. You can't make everybody equal, but you can give everybody the same chance. Right? Good for you, crazy insane alien. Right? Do you understand what I'm saying? So equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome, because you can't guarantee quality of outcome, and that's what they fear about communism. All the nails have to be the same height, right? We got to beat everybody down so nobody reaches past a certain point. Okay, that was the languaging they used to push back on equality. Now they're doing it with equity. Equity was the same. Is the concept of, on the one hand, everybody gets the same starting line. Nobody is held back just because they're born because of the color of their skin or because of their religion or any of that stuff. In America, everybody gets the same rights. Everybody gets the same privileges. That's what we're shooting for. That's what equity would be. What you do with it is up to you. That's why equity. Okay. The other thing, too, is that equity itself, as a word, has a secondary meaning that a lot of people understand in terms of housing. That you have equity in your house. That you have an investment, that equity has a dual meaning in that. On the one hand, everybody gets the same starting point, but also it means you are invested in America. Cool? That's why equity got there. Yeah, all right. So, anyways, they're trying to destroy the word equity, is my point, because they're trying to destroy that argument that everybody should have the same rights at birth, even though that is the essence of the Constitution. If the Constitution means anything, it's that your birthright is, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And these assholes are like, no. Obviously, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. By the way, if you're on YouTube, maybe if you've already subscribed, maybe think about becoming a member. If you're not subscribed, do that. Okay, anyways, here we go. So this is, by the way, in case you're wondering, this is a lady who had IVF interviewing the guy who says IVF is murder. Just to clarify who these two people are. She had IVF, and I'm glad for her. And it was successful. She had a child using IVF. This asshole thinks IVF is murder. And so he believes that every embryo that they disposed of after she successfully got pregnant and they had leftover embryos and they disposed of them, those disposed of embryos are human beings and she murdered them. Just to clarify. Yeah? Okay. I'm not kidding. That's what he really believes. That's what she really did. I, for the record, do not believe that IVF is murder. And and good for Megyn Kelly, she was able to have a child. That's it.
On that issue of equity versus equality in SOT 26.
So there's a big difference between equality and equity. Equality suggests often everybody should get the same thing. Well, that often assumes everybody started out in the same place. Mm-hmm. As opposed to equity, which is everyone should end up in the same place. And if you then understand not everybody started out in the same place, you understand some people need more. Mm-hmm. So we all end up in the same place, right?
And being guided by this principle of what we must do in the spirit and in the interest of equity, to put equity firmly at the center of our economic policy.
That was by a Twitter account called N.
And by the way, for the record, when they cut it like that to make it look like she means nobody gets past this equity point, that we're stopping greatness and bringing it down to only what other people can achieve. And that's not it at all. It's that some people born in poverty, or here's the, oh, fuck that. Here's the greatest example I can give. The ADA. That people that are born with disabilities, we put ramps on buildings so they can get in the building in the name of equity. Does that make sense? And these assholes don't think there should be ramps there. And that, and I mean, never mind the fact that Donald Trump's nephew said that he believes that, you know, people with developmental disabilities should probably just die because they're a drag on the fucking family, and you could use all the money you spend trying to keep them alive to buy yourself a condo in Florida. Fuck that dude and his running mate. But understand, that's what they're talking about. Equity is ramps on buildings. Once you get in the building and you have a job and you're able to get to that job and sit at the desk like everybody else and express yourself, maybe you'll be a success, maybe you won't. But the ADA is the best example I can give of what the equity movement is about. Yes, equity could be also equal pay for equal work. I agree. I think that's because the word equal is involved, and because work is not guaranteed and it's a standard and there's so many variants in it. I don't know that you can define that under equity, if that makes sense. Minimum wage, a federal minimum wage that's a standard that makes sure some states don't screw workers or try to pull cheaper workforces into their state, you know, by lowering the minimum wage there, keeping it suppressed so that businesses will move to their state because the workers are cheaper there. That would be an anti-equity move. And so therefore a federal minimum wage that raises that, that creates equity across the country so that some companies can't undercut the workers in another state or the businesses in another state by moving next door to Idaho where it sucks, right? Where they can basically pay people shitty wages because you're out in the middle of fucking nowhere, and picking up your life and moving someplace else will be more expensive than you can afford to do, right? That would be. That's why equity is involved in a living wage, if that makes sense.
And wokeness, which is a great follow. What do you make of this notion?
It's totally crazy talk, Megyn. Look, I think most Americans, regardless of their skin color, would say we want people to work hard to actually get ahead, right? We want people who benefit from this great American system to benefit if they work hard and play by the rules. You can't say everybody has to end up in the same place, because some people are going to work a little bit harder than others, and that's...
Yeah, and see, this is where the languaging on this it matters. And this is also why they cut what she said the way they did. Because making sure they end up in the same place, she's talking about the starting line. She's talking about that. She's not talking about where you end up in life. She's talking about the concept of rising tides that lift all boats. That everybody is floating at the beginning of this. That nobody has an anchor on their fucking ankle compared to somebody else that they didn't put there themselves. Yeah.
It's fine, and we want those people to be rewarded. The other crazy thing about this, Megyn, is it justifies some really monstrous discrimination from the Harris administration in the name of so-called equity. Let's just take one example. There was a farm program that the Harris administration put in place to help farmers who are trying to get off.
The Harris administration.
Get off to a start in farming. A great program, something I support, but I think it should apply to farmers whether they're white or black or any other skin color. The Harris administration explicitly said if you're...
The Harris administration explicitly said...
a white farmer, don't apply. A court found that was illegal, and that monstrous level of discrimination based on skin color is what is justified when people start appealing to equity.
Also, by the way, just for the record, they didn't say white farmers shouldn't apply. That wasn't the point at all. The point is that these like farmers of color were behind, and this was an attempt to give them a step forward, if not a step up. There are plenty of other loans available for white farmers out there that are not available to these folks for a myriad of reasons. Right? We know this. Especially in certain states in this country, as it were, and where it's hard to pin down precisely that the banks didn't hand out loans specifically to people because they were black and they wanted to start a farm. It seems self-evident when you look at it, but proving it in a court of law or in civil court may be very difficult. So you offer a program to help underprivileged farmers find this, whatever, and aiming it specifically at farmers of color was an attempt to fix that, to remedy that gap. Technically speaking, in a colorblind society, that isn't possible, and you have to find other ways to make up for that gap with other details besides skin color or religion or country of origin, those kind of things. That's just the reality of it. But the Biden administration tried that, and this asshole literally, is like, they're racist against white people. That's what he's trying to say.
Equity instead of equality under the law. The fundamental American principle is we treat everybody the same. If you work a little bit harder, you should be rewarded for it. If you don't work as hard.
Right, but there is an element of cutting the financial shackles off of people who were put behind by redlining and other stuff, which is something this asshole argued for in his emails with his trans friend years ago. Just if anybody has a chance to go and look at I think it's a New York Times story or whatever, but his trans friend who posted the emails they did back and forth, he was very aware that redlining and financial policies that are still going on in some places, but certainly went on for decades past when people allegedly should have had the freedom to get to get themselves ahead financially, and that put them behind everybody else. And again, this is why UBI has to be means tested. That's why we have a welfare system instead of UBI, because if it's not means tested, all you're doing is giving rich people $1,000 a month to play with. And if you're behind the eight ball and the UBI gives you $1,000 a month and you're like, fuck, okay, good, I can pay my car and my rent and this with this. But if I want anything else, I got to get that from the money that I make from my job. Yes, it gives me that extra $1,000, but more than likely it's going to be spent on necessities. And you give that same $1,000 to a well-to-do person, that person is just going to put it in the fucking stock market and watch it go up. And if that money never existed, they wouldn't notice. So if they make it, if they make money off it, great. If they lose the money, who gives a shit? It's just mad money to play with in the house.
It's hard, you shouldn't be rewarded for it, but you don't discriminate against people based on their skin color because you have some crazy left-wing notion that you have to put everybody at the exact same place at the end of the day. It sounds...
And again, this is why the languaging is important about this. Equity equals the ADA. That's what we're talking about. And in the case of redlining and some other things, getting people to the front, to the starting line is not trying to get them to the front of the line.
Sounds kind of okay, kind of weird depending on your perspective, but if you think about what it justifies in our government, it is taking us back 50 years, discrimination on the basis of law, discrimination on the basis of skin color. It's bad news, man.
He means reverse racism. That black people will get a head start on white people. That Asians and Hispanic people will get a head start on white people.
Again, and I don't think we should go for it.
It sounds kind of communist, is what it sounds. And it's pretty alarming.
Here's the reason she says it's communist, because what she means is, where everybody ends up is equal. Ends up is the loaded phrase that they're going to use. So again, when we talk about equity, it's the ADA. Some people need ramps to get in the building because of how they were born. And some people are born economically disadvantaged in such a way that they need a little bit extra help to get at equity with other people.
That decision you referenced about
By the way, by no fault of their own.
the Biden-Harris administration.
Oh, wait. I got another one. I got another great example. Let's talk about equity. Okay. Most people who have parents or grandparents who have a little bit of means to them, even over time, will be one of the things that helps you get into college, for example. You know what I mean? If your parents can't pay for it, maybe your grandparents can dig deep, maybe a combination of the two, and then some scholarships will get you into college, okay? Maybe that's where it goes. But some people, their parents pass away, and they're left with nothing, and their grandparents may be too old to work, or they don't have enough, in this situation. And so Social Security that from the parents will often get passed down to the minor child so that they can use it to go to school. And that's how Paul Ryan went to university. Paul Ryan, without that equity approach that's built into Social Security, would have never gone to university and would have never ended up in Congress. I know. That's an argument against it, Hal. No, I'm kidding. But that's true. That was equity for young Paul Ryan. What he did with it was up to him, because when he got to university, he was standing shoulder to shoulder, elbow to elbow with a bunch of these other people his same age, right? BJ in the chat says that's how they went to school. Right. This is crucial. And if you're born into poverty, you're born into a community that's overrun with poverty or drugs or whatever those kind of things are, that is not your fault. Kids don't pick their parents, no matter how much these Jesus freaks want to say so. Otherwise, I don't know why some of them would pick to be aborted, but whatever. So they do not carry the sins of the father and the mother on them. Yes, the GI Bill, another example. While everybody, that was here could go on to university, practice their education, get a little further ahead, the GIs were over there fighting for our freedom. So when they came back, let's give them a leg up. Let's help them catch up because of the gap created by them being away. Yes, equity is the starting line, not the finish line. And that's another line. That works too. Equity is the starting line, not the finish line. Let me say it again. Equity is the starting line, not the finish line. Yeah? Shit. I'll put that on a t-shirt too. And the greatest example of equity is the ADA. So just say it. Hold on. Yes, 1 second. If I may. Trump ads? Oh, really? That's hilarious. It won't be surprising if I get Trump ads on here because I use clips from them. So that's how YouTube's going to pick them, I guess.
Administration on the farmers and the ranchers would give the help to black farmers irrespective of their financial situation. So literally Oprah Winfrey.
No. These are income-based, aimed at particular communities.
Could say she has this ranch out in Montecito and that she wanted to take advantage of the program and she would get it. And some struggling farmer or rancher in
Bullshit.
Appalachia would be denied if he happened to be white. It was insane, and discrimination on the basis of race is illegal. And so that's why it was struck down.
No, it was income-based. So no, Oprah would not qualify, dum-dum.
It wasn't so long ago that the same people
seriously, that's just a lie.
piling on you now, Joy Reid, who says you only care about white moms who want to stay at home, even though you're married to a non-white mom who is not staying at home.
Just crazy talk.
They were in love with you after Hillbilly Elegy until,
No, we were not.
Because they thought you were like a Trump whisperer. You were the guy who could help them understand the evil man who had ascended to the presidency.
No. No, they did not. You were a never Trumper. That's why they were sympathetic. If he wasn't, if he was this dude, and the book came out this year, there's no fucking way Ron Howard makes that movie. People didn't turn. He changed. Don't lay this off on fucking Hollywood that they were at some point sympathetic. This motherfucker thinks you're a murderer, Megyn. I don't know what else to tell you. He thinks you're a murderer, a multiple murderer.
Presidency. But there was an interesting exchange that you had on Joy Reid's show back in the day. This is 16, discussing your book. We pulled it up just for kicks. Here it is.
JD, thank you so much for being here. I have read.
Sorry. You sure his name wasn't Baby Vance?
Read so many think pieces about your book and seen so many interviews with you. I have the book right here. Can't wait to dive into it. But your story, first of all, is fascinating. So the way you went from sort of Rust Belt country to Yale. But one of the things that's really fascinating about your story, JD, is how similar some of the pathologies you talk about are to the pathologies that normally people assign to African Americans, right? That, these ideas about the way you're raised mostly by your grandparents, the way that you were able to use opportunity like the military to get a college degree. That's very familiar across racial lines. So why do you suppose there's such a huge gulf and distance ideologically between African Americans and people from where you, like the ones you came from?
Yeah, well, I used to have a stand-up bit about how I don't understand how, like, inner-city black dudes and rednecks don't get along better because they all hate reading and they love using the N-word. And all their music sounds alike. It seems like they'd make perfect bedfellows.
Well, obviously, a lot of it goes back to 40 or 50 years ago when the two groups sort of diverged because of certain policies that were supported. A big part of it is just that because...
Whoa. Megyn Kelly's edit machine. What would be those divergent policies? You mean the Civil Rights Act? You mean that before that you could get away with sicking dogs on people for the fuck of it, and now you can't? Boo fuckity who?
Because of the way that black Americans have been discriminated against legally, I think black Americans have tended to focus on a politics of race and which party is going to provide the most racial uplift or tear down the most legal barriers, whereas white Americans have typically voted their pocketbooks, voted a politics of class, and so they've tended to not necessarily overlap.
Pretty fascinating. By the way, you look so young. It's crazy what's happened to you in the past 8 years.
It was before the beard, Megyn. That's a long time.
Well, yeah, I feel like Usha's done a good job with you, JD. You kind of, you're sharper dressing, and I like the beard.
What? Wait a minute. They've been married this whole time.
Yeah, you gotta chill. You gotta chill out with that. She's already arrogant enough about a lot of things. She deserves to be.
I
think you were
nice attempt at walking that shit back. She's already arrogant enough. I mean, she deserves to be. Fuck.
You're making a good point there.
It's like a shoe just flies into screen.
And I think even Joy Reid could see it back then. Now, maybe not.
Well, look, it's very simple. And actually, I think it's started to change, by the way, Megyn. I think you see a lot of black and white Americans voting more along class lines, voting more along.
Right. As you find administrations like the Obama administration and the Biden administration bettering the lives of those folks, and the unemployment between them and the mean generally narrowing. By the way, it's narrowed more under Biden than any person in history. The closer it gets to the mean, the more people can make a decision based on their economic desires as opposed to their race. They don't have to make a decision based entirely on race, because Democrats make that a possibility. They should be able to. The black voter shouldn't be a monolithic vote anyways, but it's had to be for a long time, because every time Republicans get in office, the line between black unemployment and regular unemployment either stays parallel or widens. And when Democrats come together, it narrows or lowers with everybody else because everybody else is benefiting. Good Lord.
Who's actually best for me? There are a lot of black energy workers who are not going to benefit from the policies of a Harris administration to destroy the American energy industry. So
What do you mean, black oil field workers because they're what, not smart enough to work with windmills or in a nuclear plant? They're just too stupid. Is this the JD Vance version of Trump thinking that the American auto worker doesn't know how to make an electric car because they're just fucking grease monkeys? Is this the idea?
So I do think that's slowly starting to change, but it is interesting to sort of hear how fascinated these people were with my story 5-10 years ago. And
you were a different human being. You are now the vice presidential candidate and a total suck up to an adjudicated rapist and a man who's been found guilty of fraud 34 fucking times, who stole national secrets.
And now that I am on the presidential ticket, they've decided that I'm the worst
No. No, it's not just that you're on the presidential ticket. No. You were a never Trumper, and now you're on the presidential ticket. You said the man that you're on the presidential ticket with could be America's Hitler. So did they change or did you change? Because it sounds like you did.
Possible guy in the world. It's fascinating to me. It's not surprising, Megyn, and it's kind of what I signed up for, right? I mean, I want to make people's lives better. My whole idea here, and the reason I accepted.
Oh, okay. He's trying to make people's lives better. So he joined Trump's ticket to help him lose by being a milquetoast wad of wet toilet paper, boring as fuck with no personality. Oh, well, it's very subversive, I guess. I'll give you that. It seems to be working.
President Trump's invitation to join the ticket is because I think that Americans have been screwed over by a lot of stupid policies. I'd like to change that. And at the cost of changing that is people like Joy Reid used to say nice things about me and now they lie about me, whatever. As Harry.
Whoa. Sorry, dude, you lie about you. You lie about you.
As Truman said, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. I think it's an honor to be here, and everything that comes along with it, I just see as a necessary part of having to do this job.
Do you think America...
A necessary part of having to do this job. Sometimes, people pronounce words in a way that tells you a story.